And so almost all of the research is done on what's called the dose-response model. That is, everybody, including most of the researchers, are thinking about this like, let's treat this like sugar. Because the data usually shows a little bit of social media use isn't correlated with harm, but a lot is. So, let's think of it like sugar. And if kids have a lot of sugar, then it's bad. So how much is okay? But social media is not like sugar at all. It's not a dose-response thing. It's a complete rewiring of childhood. So we evolved as a species in which kids play in mixed age groups. They learn the skills of adulthood. They're always playing and working and learning and doing errands. That's normal childhood. That's how you develop your brain. That's how you become a mature adult until the 1990s. In the 1990s, we dropped all that. We said it's too dangerous. If we let you outside, you'll be kidnapped. So we began rewiring childhood in the 90s before social media. And that's a big part of the story. I'm a big fan of Lenore Skenazy, who wrote the book Free Range Kids. If there are any parents listening to this, please buy Lenore's book, Free Range Kids, and then go to letgrow.org. It's a nonprofit that Lenore and I started with Peter Gray and Daniel Schuchman to help change the laws and the norms around letting kids out to play. They need free play. So that's the big picture. They need free play. And we started stopping that in the 90s, that we reduced it. And then Gen Z, kids born in 1996, they're the first people in history to get on social media before puberty. Millennials didn't get it until they were in college, but Gen Z, they get it because you can lie. You just lie about your age. So they really begin to get on around 2009, 2010, and boom, 2 years later, they're depressed. It's not because they ate too much sugar necessarily. It's because even normal social interactions that kids had in the early 2000s, largely, they decline because now everything's through the phone. And that's what I'm trying to get across, that it's not just a dose-response thing. It's imagine one middle school where everyone has an Instagram account and it's constant drama. Everyone's constantly checking and posting and worrying. And imagine going through puberty that way versus imagine there was a policy, no phones in school. You have to check them in a locker. No one can have an Instagram account. All the parents are on board. Parents only let their kids have Instagram because the kid says everyone else has it. We're stuck in a social dilemma. We're stuck in a trap. So what's the solution? Keep kids off until they're done with puberty. There's a new study actually by Amy Orpin and Andy Shabilsky showing that the damage is greatest for girls between 11 and 13. So there is no way to make it safe for preteens or even 13, 14-year-olds. Kids should simply not be allowed on these business models where you're the product. They should not be allowed on until you're 16. We need to raise the age and enforce it. Yeah. But by the same token, I'm very reluctant to have Facebook and Instagram tell my kids what to do without me even knowing or without me having any ability to control it. Right. As a parent, it's very hard to stop your kid. I have stopped my kids from getting on Instagram, and that's caused some difficulties, but they also have thanked me because they see that it's stupid. They see that what the kids who are heavily on it, what they post, they see that the culture of it is stupid, as they say. So I don't think there's a way to make it healthy for kids. I think there's one thing which is healthy for kids, which is free play. We already robbed them of most of it in the 90s. The more time they spend on their devices, the less they have free play. Video games is a kind of play. I'm not saying that these things are all bad. But 12 hours of video game play means you don't get any physical play. So anyway.
And ultimately, physical play is the way to develop physical anti-fragility.
And especially social skills. Kids need huge amounts of conflict with no adult to supervise or mediate, and that's what we robbed them of. So there was a lot of ambiguity. There are conflicting studies, but when you look at it all together, the correlational studies are pretty clear, and the effect sizes are coming in around 0.1 to 0.15, whether you call that a correlation coefficient or a beta. It's all in the standardized beta. It's all in that sort of range. There's also experimental evidence. We collect true experiments with random assignment, and they mostly show an effect. And there's eyewitness testimony. The kids themselves, you talk to girls and you poll them. Do you think overall Instagram is good for your mental health or bad for it? You're not going to find a group saying, oh, it's wonderful. Oh, yeah, Mark, you're right. It's mostly good. No, the girls themselves say this is the major reason. And I've got studies in the Google Doc where there have been surveys. What do you think is causing depression and anxiety? And the number one thing they say is social media.
Do you think the recommendation is, as a parent, that teens should not use Instagram, Twitter?
Yes.
That's ultimately, maybe in the long term, there's more nuanced solution.
There's no way to make it safe. It's unsafe at any speed.
Well, look, I mean, it might be very difficult to make it safe. And in the short term, while we don't know how to make it safe, put down the phone.
Well, hold on a second. Play with other kids via a platform like Roblox or multiplayer video games. That's great. I have no beef with that. You focused on bullying before. That's one of 5 or 7 different avenues of harm. The main one, I think, which does in the girls, is not being bullied. It's living a life where you're thinking all the time about posting. Because once a girl starts posting, so it's bad enough that they're scrolling through, and this is, everyone comments on this, you're scrolling through and everyone's life looks better than yours because it's fake, and all that you see are the ones the algorithm picked that were the night anyway. So the scrolling, I think, is bad for the girls. What I'm beginning to see, I can't prove this, but what I'm beginning to see from talking to girls, from seeing how it's used, is once you start posting, that takes over your mind, and now you're no longer present. Because even if you're only spending 5 or 6 hours a day on Instagram, you're always thinking about it. And when you're in class, you're thinking about how are people responding to the post that I made between classes.